accords, women are now being freed up to be involved in significant positions, driving cars, going out to dinner with their husbands and others. There are dramatic changes going on inside Saudi Arabia, which is enormously popular with their people, many of whom are quite young. So I think a lot is moving in the right direction. The other good news is it appears as if the ill-fated agreement with the Iranians related to the nuclear issue is, if not dead, on life supports. And that's reassuring, I think, to the Israelis and all of our Sunni Arab allies.
Well, there are lots of things for not only the Germans, but everybody to hate about the Inflation Reduction Act. Interestingly enough, the tax credits that the leader alluded to, as soon as that legislation passed, the price for electric vehicles went up by about the same amount as the tax credit. So no big surprise there. But one of the things I want to talk about with respect to the Inflation Reduction Act was the massive infusion of money into the IRS. $80 billion, which is about 6 times their annual budget, and 87,000 new employees at the IRS. And many of us asked questions at the time about how those IRS employees are going to be deployed. What are these people all going to be doing out there? And of course the administration has not had good answers for any of that. But here we are, 10 days after the deadline, when the IRS was supposed to submit a detailed report about how all that money was going to be used, and we have yet to see any kind of a report to that effect. And so 10 days past the deadline, lack of transparency, $80 billion sort of out there with the IRS, and lots of questions about how it's actually being deployed. I would say that anything that's not used directly for taxpayer services, any dollars that don't go into taxpayer services, ought to be frozen in place until the IRS submits a plan that makes it very clear to the American people about how this $80 billion and how these 87,000 new employees are going to be used. I've got a piece of legislation along with Chuck Grassley. It's an accountability act that would require that to happen, and I hope that we can get as many people behind that legislation as possible and continue to try and build pressure on the IRS to fulfill its obligation to the American people, that when they pass this, that they would in fact tell us exactly how these dollars are going to be used. They've got an IRS commissioner that is nominee it was in front of the Senate Finance Committee last week, that they'll probably try and put on the floor for a vote. I cannot in good conscience support that nominee as long as there is $80 billion in unaccounted for funding out there. And so that's a non-starter for me, and I guess I hope that the administration will come forward with that plan, but I'm not holding my breath about it.
Republicans are committed to protecting American families' retirement savings. Yesterday, Joe Biden said he is going to veto our efforts. Joe Biden is giving the middle finger to middle-class Americans who are concerned about the returns on their retirement funds. He is more committed to his climate change agenda and his pipe dream than he is to the American dreams of hundreds of millions of American families. What's happened here is the woke and weaponized bureaucracy of the Department of Labor has come out with new regulations on retirement funds. And they want retirement funds to be invested in things that are consistent with their very liberal left-wing agenda. They want to make sure that you invest only in those left-wing type things. It's called ESG, environmental, social, governance, which means you can invest in things that you might want to invest in, including oil and gas and coal and American energy. Well, the reality is the investments that the Democrats are now mandating are things that don't actually turn out to be good investments. Bloomberg analysts looked at this and said the return on those ESG investments falls behind the market. so people that invest in those fall further and further behind. And not only are their investment returns worse, but the cost of making those investments, the expenses are much higher. So people end up losing twice. Well, the Republicans in the House today are voting, and the Senate will soon be voting, to overturn these mandates, regulations from the Department of Labor. We need to stop Joe Biden from strangling American families' investments in their retirement funds. The American people deserve more freedom and choice than we're getting from this control and command Biden administration.
All right, folks. When the COVID-19 pandemic started in 2020 or before, there was a possibility out there that it could have been caused by a lab leak in China, right? But that was dismissed as a conspiracy theory. This was promoted as a conspiracy theory by this administration, by the media, by Democrats, by the NIH, by Dr. Fauci, a conspiracy theory. That was 3 years ago. Today, now we've learned from a leaked report that the lab leak most likely the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic. Most likely a leak. Okay, what a turnaround in 3 years. Okay, what we do know, American taxpayer dollars have gone to the Wuhan Institute of Virology to the tune of $1.7 million invested in dangerous, bad experimentations surrounding coronavirus. Our dollars, $1.7 million to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And the crazy thing is, folks, that they are still eligible to receive American taxpayer dollars in China to a lab that most likely had a leak that led to millions of COVID-19 deaths around the world. So I'm fighting to immediately stop any funding that will go to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I think that's important. I also support the further investigation from Congress into the Wuhan Institute of Virology, not only what we're spending there, but how this possibly could have happened. So, folks, again, let's go ahead, let's follow the science. Everybody agrees with that, follow the science, but let's also follow the money and figure out what happened. Because only then, if we're following the money and following the science, can we hope to prevent a pandemic in the future.
Thank you all for being here. I hope you had a good President's Day. I'd like to talk about the train derailment. Obviously, I'm from West Virginia. That's central part of our state, our northern part, borders with Ohio. We're only 14 miles south of where the train derailment actually happened. The water aquifers feed into the Ohio River, which feeds into our water supply, both in Ohio, also in Kentucky as well, downriver. And, you know, I think we need to really ask ourselves as we see this unfold, how has the response been? It has been, I think, miserable to watch. As citizen after small business from East Palestine, Ohio, comes forward and says, nobody really cares. We're getting unclear information. Is the water safe? We don't know. Is the air safe? We don't know. Are our wells safe? We don't know. Because of such conflicting communication and such lagging times. The Ohio Department of Environmental Protection was right on top of this. The governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, right on top of this. Our own Senator J.D. Vance, right on top of this. But some of the other responses have been wanting in terms of, or lacking in clear guidance, lacking in care for the people that are most deeply affected and those that will be affected. So this next week, through the EPW with Chairman Carper, we're going to be doing a hearing there. We're going to be doing one over in Commerce. I'm sure they're doing them over the House side. I mean, this just can't stand. A catastrophe in a small area such as this that has such deep implications and long living implications has to have a better response all up and down the line.
You know things are getting bad when a left-of-center European leader, specifically Germany, is lecturing Senate Democrats about how far left they've gone in terms of policies to shut down made in America conventional source of energy and promoting their green agenda. The Biden administration, Senate Democrats' war on American energy still continues, despite lectures from the Europeans telling you can't do this. The president killed the Keystone XL pipeline, comes right into Montana. We can't afford to fill up our vehicles. We can't afford to heat our homes. And now the Biden administration is proposing we can't cook on gas stoves. Last fall, the administration started targeting gas stoves. In January, the White House press secretary said that President Biden doesn't support such a ban. The 1st of February, the Department of Energy publishes a rule that would ban 96% of our gas stoves in the United States. Now, when this word came out, of course, there's a bit of squawking up here on Capitol Hill and around the country. Now, on February 16th, the Department of Energy changes their math, and now they say it's only 50%. And for those of you who think it's another conspiracy that Senator Ernst talked about, that the media will sometimes accuse us of, read it in the DOE's own publication on their website that says nearly half of the total gas cooking top market would be illegal under this proposed rule. When I was in Europe last year, the Romanian Prime Minister, who was lamenting on policies that were being promoted years ago in Northern Europe, said this. He said, "A vision without an action plan is a hallucination." The Democrats are living in a green hallucination. They worship this green religion, and we know their goal here is to get rid of all fossil fuels. I didn't think I'd live to see the day when they want to start banning natural gas. Let's keep in mind, over the next 25 years, global energy demand is going to increase 50% from where it is today. We need an additive kind of strategy as it relates to energy, not subtraction. We need all of the above energy because coal, natural gas, oil will continue to be the majority contributor to global energy and American energy for decades to come. As one coal miner in Montana recently said, the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine. You can't burn our current energy bridges until the new bridges are built and working in the future.
Leader McConnell.
Jeff?
What is your expectation from the Gang of Eight briefing today? What is the most important question on your mind? What you need to get out of this meeting?
Yeah, I don't have any observations about that.
But you're not concerned about this issue of documents?
I don't have any observations about Gang of Eight. Yeah.
Are you comfortable with Speaker McCarthy getting access to January 6th security footage to Tucker Carlson, someone who has downplayed this attack?
Well, going back to when Speaker Pelosi was Speaker, my main concern is the security of the Capitol.
Does this undermine the security of the Capitol?
the release of those tapes?
Just as a compromise, are you concerned there might be a compromising security if it goes to a certain outlet or news outlet?
Yeah, as I said, my main concern, going back to when Speaker Pelosi was still there, the security of the Capitol, which was obviously severely threatened on January 6th.
To your point about your concerns for security of the Capitol, are you concerned at all with the lack of security screening for members like yourself, not required to go through any type of security screening? There have been members on the House side that brag about
Well, good try. As I told you, going back to Speaker Pelosi, my concern has been the security of the Capitol, period.
Yep.
Senator Cotton says that we should not be talking about cutting the defense budget at this time. He says, if anything, substantial defense increases are in order. Do you agree with Senator Cotton's view on this?
I absolutely do. I mean, look at the defense budget ought to reflect the nature of the threat. We have not only Russia and Ukraine, which we've generally done in supplementals, but we have the ongoing challenge of meeting China in the future. I think we did a good job in last year's omnibus bill of plussing up defense, and clearly in this environment, we need to continue to plus up defense. We have problems with domestic production of weapons and ammunition. I mean, no one anticipated we'd be supplying material to Europe for a land war. And I think all of the NATO countries need to ramp up their emphasis on defense, not only on defense production, but what countries have not yet met the 2% NATO requirement need to rapidly get there. I do think the attitude has changed as a result of the invasion. Certainly the attitudes in Germany have changed. We're going to have 2 new members, Sweden and Finland, with excellent militaries. It's gotten the attention of the Japanese. They're going to give $5 billion to the Ukrainians, they announced this weekend. I think that our allies around the world are seriously focused now on having defense spending fit the need. And the need, obviously, by any estimation, is going up.
On East Palestine,
Didn't you?
Been abandoned. There's been got a lot of backup. Glad happy to say. But I could use a Jerry or someone. I won't need it yet. Yeah. Okay, first I want to say a few words about the President's new nominee for Labor Secretary. As a proven fighter for American workers, Julie Su will be a phenomenal Labor Secretary. She's been on the front lines protecting workers as a veteran litigator for years, from helping place workers in good high-paying jobs to fighting doggedly to combat wage theft. Julie learned the ins and outs of labor firsthand. I look forward to working with her on key issues for American workers, like updating the outdated overtime rule to pay workers what they've earned. That's really important. We're going to be focusing on that. Training and connecting workers to good-paying jobs, and ensuring the workers are protected in the workplace. The President couldn't have picked a better nominee. I'm really excited about her, and we're going to move to consider her nomination very, very quickly. Okay, next, on our CODEL. Which Senator Reid was one of our 9 senators on the CODEL. I led my first CODEL last week as leader ever. 8 of my colleagues and I met with leaders of Europe, of India, of Pakistan, of Israel. And there were two takeaways that became clear and that we emphasized throughout the trip, and we think we very successfully made strong impressions on them. First, the United States and the West must continue to deepen our relationship with India if we want to outcompete the Chinese Communist Party in this century. India is the perfect counterweight to China, and when joined with the West, we can really outcompete with the Chinese. The second thing we emphasized, and Jack Reed took one of the leads on this, democracies must unite in increasing their help to Ukraine. We made that argument to every one of the four national leaders we met. Prime Minister Modi, five that we met. Prime Minister Modi got the message during our meeting with him in India. We made clear that the two leading democracies of the world's oldest democracy, the world's largest democracy, should be a powerful check against President Xi in this century. We cannot afford to lose the lead. President Xi wants to outcompete America, not just on defense, but economically, geopolitically, technologically, in terms of our fundamental values and beyond. The second point we made in each meeting was the importance of standing shoulder to shoulder with the people of Ukraine. We made it clear to the leaders of Europe, India, Pakistan, and Israel that they must do more to help Ukraine. Vladimir Putin's illegal invasion is now a year old, and as difficult as the road has been, we've made it clear that the worst thing we could do would be to waver in our support right now. So the right answer is for the transatlantic partnership, all the free nations of the world, to help. It was a productive, exhilarating, motivating trip, and I think Senator Reid will agree. Now back to stateside. Yesterday, I called on the CEO of Norfolk Southern, Alan Shaw, to testify before the Senate regarding the horrific derailment in East Palestine. He has not said yes yet. We are renewing our plea. Mr. Shaw, you have an obligation, after what happened, to testify before the Senate. The accident was awful, devastating to the community, worst of all, preventable, according to the NTSB. But just don't take the NTSB's word for it. We all knew. For years, Democrats have pushed and even successfully secured stronger safety standards for rail around the country. But rail companies spent years pushing the federal government, particularly the Trump administration, to repeal the safety standards intended to prevent accidents like the one that happened in Ohio. Was Norfolk Southern advocating for these rollbacks? Of course they were. Why, after reporting over $3 billion in profit last year, did they lay off thousands of workers in the same year? $3 billion of profits and worker layoffs all at the same time? More pointedly, why would Norfolk Southern launch a $10 billion stock buyback last year when they could have and clearly should have used that money to upgrade safety equipment? So again, I'm calling on him to testify, Mr. Shaw, as soon as possible. Norfolk Southern, you've broken your trust with the American people. The American people, and of course the people of East Palestine, deserve answers. On student debt, lastly, today oral arguments will begin on President Biden's student debt relief plan, a plan that is nothing short of a lifeline for tens of millions of Americans, giving them a new lease on life. Now, Republicans talk a big game about helping working people, but today's case, pushed by Republicans who oppose student debt relief, is a slap in the face to working Americans across the country. Let me be clear. 90% of the relief going to out-of-school borrowers will go to those earning less than $75,000 a year. This is not some giveaway to the rich. That's utter bull put together by Republicans who don't want to help students. It's not a handout to the wealthy. It's critical relief to working and middle-class families. For generations, higher education was the ladder up. Every one of our families, mine, prized sending their kids to college, especially now for millions of Black, Latino, and Asian Americans. But over the years, the student debt that comes alongside a college degree has created not a ladder up, but an anchor weighing down Americans, making it harder to buy a house, start a car, start a family, move jobs. In other words, the burden of student debt has made it harder for Americans to achieve the American dream. That's what's at stake before the Supreme Court. Not just the chance to relieve the crushing weight of student debt for millions of Americans, but the definition of the American dream is on the line today. And wrapping it up, so all this to say, the Senate's back. Here we are. I landed from Israel Saturday night. Sunday morning, I was opening up the brand new Long Island Railroad East Side Access in New York City, went to a swearing-in in Brooklyn, a WTC memorial, and the next day I got on the plane, went up to Buffalo and Rochester. Here we are. We're keeping the momentum going into this week and this work period with energy, determination, purpose. Senator Durbin.
It's been 39 years since the United States Senate has had a hearing on the Equal Rights Amendment. We had one today. It was an important historic milestone. Why today? Because we realize with the Dobbs decision that the role and future rights of women across America is still at issue. We also realize from statements by Justice Clarence Thomas and others that other fundamental rights are also in danger today. Rights of family planning, rights of individuals in privacy, they're all at risk. And the third thing we realized is we have to step forward now and make it clear where we stand as politicians, both political parties. Do we want to enshrine in our Constitution equality for women in America? We know it's necessary after what we've been through in the last few weeks, but we also realize that it is something that we've been fighting to put in place for a century. 1 century since the first Equal Rights Amendment was introduced to the public 100 years ago. We believe now is the time for this party and this Congress to stand up for the rights of women under our Constitution clearly. The second issue I'll raise is judges, of course. 106 judges have been approved by the Senate so far. We're way ahead of the numbers of previous presidents, and we have another 30 or more on the calendar ready to be considered. I want to thank Senator Schumer for scheduling these votes. We've been able to keep up with the numbers produced by the committee, and we're going to continue to do so. What we're setting out to do is more than just fill vacancies. We want to make sure that these vacancies are filled with lifetime appointments that will balance the bench in America. We bring diversity to our ranks with the leadership of President Biden, and we bring talent to our ranks. Every single nominee of the Biden administration has been judged well qualified by the American Bar Association. The previous president cannot say that. We bring people of quality to come before the Congress, and the Senate has approved them, every single one of them so far, and I hope that continues.
Reid.
Well, as the leader said, we had a very, very productive trip, beginning in Munich with the Munich Security Conference, and then going down to India, then to Pakistan, and then finally Israel, and then back home. In Munich, what we found was extremely strong, unified support for the people of Ukraine. This was an issue that united our allies in Europe particularly. And when you look at their contributions, not just military, but the whole spectrum, military, humanitarian, support to the government, and what is often overlooked, the absorptions of millions of immigrants. Our European allies are pitching in on a GDP basis as much as we are, and in some cases quite a bit more, particularly the Baltics and Poland. So we left there with a sense of real unity among our allies and commitment for the struggle ahead in Ukraine. When we were in India, we got a chance to speak to leaders. We also made the case that this was a battle between autocracy and democracy. When we spoke to Prime Minister Modi, we made that case. But we also were more specific. If an autocracy like Russia prevails, then an autocracy like China feels a little bit taller, a little bit more robust, a little bit more ready to take on the world. And it's not just Taiwan. China and India have been disputing the line of control in Kashmir for years. There was recently action. So the battle and Ukraine will have impacts there too. And what we stressed with India was the United States should be cooperating, coordinating, along with other Pacific allies like Japan, Australia, and the United States and India should start thinking about cooperative development and co-production of systems so we can expand our defense industrial base. We found recently that that defense industrial base is being severely tested by the conflict in Ukraine. We made the same message in Israel. When we talked to the Prime Minister, we indicated that if Russia wins, Iran wins. Iran is providing weapons systems to the Russians. The Russians, I think, will be reciprocating in some way. So this is not just about a struggle, Ukraine versus Russia. This is democracy versus autocracy, and for many countries, this will significantly increase the threat that they will see regionally. And it was a very productive trip, and I think we're going to get significant cooperation going forward. Senator Stebbins.
Well, the trip that Senator Schumer and Senator Reid talked about is incredibly important, and the issues that Senator Durbin is talking about as well moving forward are very, very important, and we are committed to moving forward. But we also are committed to reminding people that the last Congress under Democratic majorities was one of the most productive in generations, and now the federal government is implementing what we did in those 2 years. And American families and communities are seeing the benefits of that every day. For instance, we're lowering the cost of health care. 2 examples. If you are 65 or older, if you're a person with disabilities on Medicare, you now are not required to pay any more than $35 a month for your insulin. This is hundreds and hundreds of dollars in savings and saving lives. And this is something we've already accomplished. The shingles vaccine is now free for people on Medicare, saving hundreds of dollars for our seniors. Second, we have the strongest economy in a generation, and we're bringing jobs home. This is very exciting to me as a Michigan manufacturing state, when we see the renaissance in manufacturing and the fact that we are literally bringing jobs home. We have semiconductor plants and battery plants and other clean energy manufacturing that's opening across the country that's going to create literally tens of millions of jobs because of what we've already accomplished in the last 2 years. And we're investing in our rural communities. With my chair of Agriculture Committee hat on, I'll just give one example. Affordable high-speed internet is now happening through investments through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which are critical to connecting people at work, our schools, our hospitals, our small businesses, our farmers. In Michigan, I'm excited to say that homes and businesses and farms in the Upper Peninsula, the northernmost part of Michigan, will soon have access to high-speed internet thanks to the funding in the Reconnect program. This is about real people, real lives, making a difference in their success, their children's success, their health care, every single day. That's what we are focused on. We are focused on making people's lives better, even as we tackle the issues now right in front of us moving forward. And the good news is American families are seeing results every day.
Thank you, Deb. Yes.
Can you respond to the Energy Department's conclusion that the COVID pandemic most likely arose from a lab leak and whether the classified information about that should be released?
Okay, the bottom line is we've got to get to the bottom of this. The Biden administration is committed to it. They have all kinds of people looking at it, and we'll wait to see their results. Once the results occur, it depends. I'd have to look at what kind of classified information and sources and everything like that were there.
Leadership, would you consider releasing the footage from January 6th to media, considering the fact that McCarthy has handed it to one outlet?
Look, I think what McCarthy did was despicable. It damaged our security. And certainly is something, you know, when he listens to a small group at the MAGA right, he's going to run into trouble himself. As for releasing it, security has to be the #1 concern. Yes?
As soon as next week the Senate can vote on a resolution to block the new changes to the D.C. criminal code, how do you see that playing out, and will you be encouraging your fellow Democrats to oppose this?
Okay, look, we Senate Democrats care about D.C. political autonomy. We also care a lot about safety and security of D.C. residents. As you know, it's a privileged motion. It ripens next week, and there'll be a vote shortly thereafter.
This Gang of 8 briefing later this afternoon. What is your #1 question and concern as you go into this briefing? What are you looking for?
Look, the lead has been taken by Senator Warner. I have backed him up on this, but we want to make sure that intelligence stuff is protected as much as possible. That's the key. Yes, young man over there. I think this is your first question. What's your name? Eric. Hi, Eric. See, we're very friendly around here.
Can't wait to get to know him.
Even friendlier and nicer.
So, do Democrats have the votes to pass Mayor Garcetti's nomination to the Leads Committee? Do you personally support his nomination?
Okay, the bottom line is, as you know, the vote has been postponed another week. The ranking member of Foreign Relations wanted a postponement. We'll have to wait to see what happens in committee. Yes.
On the bill to ban TikTok, allowing President Biden to do so, are you supportive of bringing that up in the Senate if it makes it over here? Do you believe it
Look,
constitutes
we have to make sure that China is not getting information, and a number of our committees are looking at that very carefully. Thank you, everybody. AUMF, last one.
On AUMF, do you plan on bringing up that?
I do want to bring it up. We have a large number of Republican sponsors, and we're working on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to get a vote on it as soon as we can.
Senator,
Thank you.
On Julie Sue?
I said something.